Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
Steve.
night, everyone.
This is a regular that a public hearing be held on Monday, November 28th, 2016, 6 p.m. in the Municipal Building, 14 Baker Street, Patchogue, New York, by the Village Board of the Incorporated Village of Patchogue, to consider overriding the 2% tax cap as established in General Municipal Law 3-C, a copy of which is proposed local law is on file at the Office of the Village Clerk. At said public hearing, any person interested will be given the opportunity to
Mr. Kulisek.
Well, we're here again. We're going to start thinking about our budget for next year. And I just think it's prudent that we override the tax cap at this point. You know, we really have no idea what our expenses are going to be next year. There's a lot of things we want to do, a lot of roads to pave, a lot of things to get done, and I don't want to be stifled by this tax cap. I think it's 0.68 is the increase.
0.68.
I don't know if everybody knows this, but if you make a mistake in your calculation and you go over it, you are in serious trouble. And I just think that it doesn't make any sense to try to stay. I mean, we're going to try to stay up, but let's just, you know, approve that we break it. And if we can stay below it, believe me, we work very hard to keep our expenses down, to keep our costs down, to keep the budget as low as we can. And we're going to continue to do that. But to have this over our heads, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm recommending that we break it. And, you know, the board members.
Basically, we need to approve this to protect ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I know, Tom, I know you've done some work on this, and look at it.
Yeah, I just have one quick comment. We saw in the press information about the new budget that our benefits are going to increase 9%. The pension and healthcare costs are going to go up 9% next year. Our pension, this is approximate, it's not exact, you know, multiply a few numbers by 12, but our healthcare is about $1.5 million. And our pension benefit is about $675,000. So that's $2.1 million. A 9% increase on that is $195,000. Our total budget is $13 million. A 0.68% increase on that is $88,400. So our known increase in benefits mandated by the state that we can't do anything about, that we don't get to vote on, that the residents of the village don't get to vote on, is nearly twice as big as our allowable increase in the whole budget. So we're dead at the door. If we were to comply with this, we have to reduce services. And I don't want to be trapped by a 2% tax cap. That's.
Any other comment by the board?
John Bogack, Egan Street. I haven't been here in a while, so I got lots of questions.
We missed you.
We'll see.
Here's the questions.
Yeah, I understand the rationale for the tax cap and having the leverage so that there's no penalties imposed because of good faith error. But on your point, Tom, about mandated expenses, I understand that as well. But what I'm more curious about is possible revenue sources, starting with the size of the budget surplus. If there is, I'm sure there's still a budget surplus. So that would be a factor too, and how big that surplus is it grown since the last year? I don't really know.
Well, we've been hitting that surplus every year. Last year, I think we hit it at 650.
Put 250,000 out of surplus last year.
And we'll continue to do what we have to do to get the tax rate down. But you can't deplete that surplus. You bring that surplus down to $2 million or $1.5 million on our $13 million budget. You go out to the street to get a bond, you're dead. Your rating is going to go down. It's going to cost you twice as much as it costs now in your payments. It's really, I mean, we need to keep our village strong. We need to keep our finances strong. We need to keep our rating high. Trust me, I don't want to be the highest rating, because if you're the highest rating, the only place it goes down. So I don't want to do that. My AA1 or AA is fine. But you got to keep it there, because it attracts more than just financial issues. It attracts people into the village. It attracts
The
a
other
lot
thing-
of businesses, it's very important you keep that where it is. And
The other thing too, just very quickly, Ron, is that Irene, Hurricane Sandy, the snowstorms that, especially after Sandy and Irene, we talked to the villages that live in our Amityville, they were out borrowing money. Belfort had to borrow money. We didn't have to borrow a dime because we had a surplus that allowed us to take care of what we had to take care of. And you know, it took us until, what, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, to get the dock back open and done the way we wanted it to be done. But we had the money to repair it to a point where we could use it up until the construction started. I'm very cognizant of the fact that things happen, as we all are, and that you need to be financially prepared. It's like, you know, some people say you want to have a business, you want to your home. Well, everybody needs to have a savings. That's our emergency money as much as it is. And when Ron from the banking position looks at it as how we keep ourselves financially stable, I look at it as how do we make sure that at the time that we need it, we got it.
Well, this actually segues into my second question related to the surplus. As I recall, that 650 and maybe $1 million something the year before it was really used for settling tax certiorari grievances.
That, we
Is
use
that
for
yes
that.
or no? I'm not sure.
Yeah, but we use it for whatever we have to, it's not
We
specific.
used about 450, almost 500,000 for certioraris that came through last year, and we had the funding to do it.
Okay.
But we also put 675,000 in last year's budget. We took out the last year's budget, look, last year's surplus into the budget to keep us as low as we could go. But still keeping us in the realm of making sure that our bond rating stays in the position.
Okay, well, that's good, so I'm glad I understand that point a little better. But usually when, you know, we have these budget hearings, there's a surprise tax certiorari that has to be paid. That's couple hundred thousand. Are we expecting any of those on the horizon?
I don't think so, but
I don't see anything right
I
now.
I
don't
think the big ones are
Thank
pretty much,
God.
yeah, I think, I think pretty much the big ones are done. The scary thing at tax certioraries, and you can tell by what happened in Nassau County, that's what happened to them, is that a lot of it was borrowing to fund the tax certioraries. And that's funds that don't come back, because then that number gets reset in the future to a lower amount that's on a successful tax challenge.
Right.
So, I've spoken with tax counsel, I think the big ones are all done,
Right.
at least in process, so I think we're gonna be pretty good.
You know, Brian and Paul stay on top of that stuff, I think we're in pretty good shape.
But
I don't see any surprise.
they don't know what comes out and what's out there in the woods.
How much is that a year for
What's that?
6.8?
The last year's average tax amount was $16 per household.
Paul, if I can make one comment. John, you mentioned alternative sources of revenue.
Yes, ambulance fees.
Really important, okay? You know,
Tell me twice.
we got the head tax on the theater, okay? Every time
Yes,
a
right.
ticket sold, and that, you know, that's theater oriented, that takes care of that. The responsibility of maintaining that building which belongs to the village, away from the taxpayers. And parking is pretty much going along self-contained, but let me tell you, we're always looking for new ways of getting money,
Right.
other than from real estate tax.
All right.
You know, I've thrown a couple of things at Brian, and you know, the state, there's so many things that you think we could do. Like, I wanted an ed tax on the restaurants. Okay, doesn't that make sense? You know, you got capacity for 400 people every night. Give us a quarter, okay? You can't do it. The state mandates that we are not allowed to tax them. So, we were always looking for, Ron came up with one meeting before this. You know, we used to get mortgage transfer tax. We don't get any sales tax, okay? I mean, you get to a different level of government, and they got 6 sources, maybe 3 sources of revenue. We have real estate taxes and fees. That's it, you know. So, but we're always looking, and maybe one of these days we'll find something.
Well, I'll just make my last question then, which is the ambulance fee. I know that there's I don't know where this is. I've been asking about it
It's in
for
their lap.
years.
Yeah.
So, but I know it could be a source of.
It's in their lap, they're supposed to get back.
It
to
is.
us.
Their lap.
Yes.
Yeah, but one of the issues right now, unfortunately, is that John Locke, who is the president of the board, is very ill. So we've sort of had to pull back a little bit because he's the one that was spearheading it. Hopefully by January, February. They have come down, and I spoke to John, they have 3 companies that they're looking at to do the billing on that. So as soon as he's strong enough and we can get their board together, we need to interview those 3 to determine which one we're going to go with.
What do you think the projected?
I'm hoping by February that we have, I'm hoping by February we have an idea as to what we can do, because it's extremely important. For those that don't, one of the things we're looking to do is to be able to charge back insurance companies. You know, the person takes a ride in a bus to go to the hospital, 60–70% of the people have insurance. And we pay $500,000 a year to the ambulance company. They do about 2,500 calls. So if we can get, I don't know, $300 a call to one.
I'll take it out.
Some calls cost $700.
Really?
Yeah.
If you're a life-threatening call to the hospital, they use all these life support drugs, and it's very expensive.
But also, don't forget that, you know, that if it was just a simple and easy thing, we would have already done that by now. You know, the challenge with that is it's complicated because you will be, one of the debates is you will be delivering a bill on which you cannot waive right, to everybody. When you get a service, just as when you go to a doctor, you have a copay. Well, everyone, if the board decides to do this, is one of the things we grapple with from a policy standpoint. Everybody should go back and read your copay fine print and what an ambulance call is to the hospital or elsewhere. Because your copay for your doctor is $25, your copay is going to be $200+ to that hospital. And when you think of an elderly person who goes in and they have a copay that they didn't plan on having to pay, it's something that we grapple with. So
how do we do it? How do we make it fair to everybody? How do you make it fair to that person that doesn't have insurance? How do you make sure that we're not part of their problem, but part of their solution? Right. So I mean, it really becomes a problem for us to making sure that we deal with all the residents fairly.
Right.
I just made that point to say we don't ignore that revenue line, we just grapple with the policy of it.
Well, if it comes to be, I'll certainly be looking at the fine print of my insurance.
Yeah.
But you know, there's some counter arguments too. The person who doesn't live here in the village, let's say gets picked up in front of a bar or club because they OD or whatever, we're paying that bill, correct?
Yes.
Not even a village resident. Right.
Sure.
I mentioned a third of the calls they have, exactly those kind of things, non-village residents or whatever it's called.
And this is a traditional problem for insurance companies. There are some families that use these services quite a lot.
No question.
And there are some that hardly use them at all.
Yep.
And the burden is then placed on the greater majority, where some people are getting quite a good benefit out of the fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, motion to accept.
Yes, one quick question. When you go to pierce the cap, is there a threshold where you have to, is it an open, can you raise it by 80%? Is there a cap that, I understand you're not going to,
No.
and you never do, is there a cap associated with that?
There isn't a cap on the cap.
Okay, yeah, cap on a cap would be a question, there isn't?
No.
Okay, I just didn't know.
No,
that-
it's,
Okay.
any other questions? No. Oh, Ms. Miller.
Josephine Miller, 276 West Avenue. I'm glad, Tom, that you mentioned that we don't get the sales tax, because you would be amazed at how many people think that the prosperity on Main Street brings a lot of money into the village treasury. I make sure they understand that we don't get 1 penny for that. But I have a question. You said revenue comes mostly from real estate taxes. So the landlords on Main Street, is that is the tax rate different? So they pay the same rate that, for example, I pay?
Yes.
No, commercial tax rate. A commercial tax rate is higher than a residential tax rate.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
How much higher?
Considerably. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's significant.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I misunderstood the question. Any other comment? Motion to accept the consent?
Motion.
Second? All in favor? So carried. Request approval to adopt the hazardous materials response plan. What this is